Hey everybody, welcome back to the A.C.E Football Academy. I am Coach Dunham, joined alongside Coach Hamilton. Today we are focusing on our series, State of U.S. Soccer. We have gone over Spain, Germany, and England and their game plan for the future. Today we're going to look at the American plan. Where is America? Where are we going? Do we agree with what's happening? Coach, it's clear the U.S. has a massive population. What, 350 million people in this country, give or take? Mm-hmm. And there's such a lack of world-class players. And I think you and I are just baffled year after year, where we watch guys like Christian Pulisic. Where's everybody else?
Well, it's not even the lack of world-class players, but it is the lack of players who can make our men's team relevant. Like, I don't need you to be world-class, right? I mean, if we had 18 Christian Pulisic, that would be awesome, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But we don't, and really no country does. But the lack of A-level talent
yeah, good point.
in the Americas, I think is really holding us back, and we're going to get into that as we drop through this episode.
Yeah, I think a big issue with just American culture is the focus on winning. You and I love winning. We talk to our teams about we play to win.
I tell my girls all the time, there's nobody in this huddle right now that likes to win more than I did.
And we know the European countries are the same way, but when you put your focus on winning as the number one priority through a season, that's the problem. It should be the player development as your number one priority through a season.
Yep.
You try to win as many games as possible. You do it, great. If you don't, where did you improve? I think that's just a culture that the Americans, we're guilty of it ourselves.
100%.
But I think if parents at the youth age could kind of lay off the coaches a little bit. Hey, you only won 6 out of 10 games this season, coach, and we should have won the league. Well, we scored half our goals on free kicks, or we did this on corner kicks, or we held possession 60% of the time. We did amazing this season.
Or we lost our first 4 and then won our last 6. Like, right. Look at the growth that has happened within the season. And again, to your point, and it's, it's easy to harp on the parents, but it's not just the parents. It's also the coaches. Yeah. It's also the players, right? And so we all have to come to that understanding that, and even as coaches, that you and I are, who we truly believe in the development. But on the side, we also have to know that winning does matter, and it makes, and if you can win every now and then, it makes losing a little easier every now and then, right? And so I think we're going to talk about a lot of stuff tonight, but I think that's going to be my ultimate takeaway, that you're going to hear, if you go back and listen to our episodes on England, Spain, and Germany, that in the grassroots, I mean, how many times in those 3 episodes, Germany, England, Spain, did we mention the word winning? I mean, I bet you it's less than 5. We've already mentioned it 25 times tonight, because it's who we are as a nation, it's who we are as a culture, and it is, as we're going to see, hampering us a little bit.
Yeah, 2 major issues I think you and I see in youth soccer right now. Number 1 is overloading. Playing more games or as many games as you have training days in a season. We're playing in 2 leagues. We're attending 3 tournaments. When did these kids have time to recover? And that's a big beef with players who have made it to a higher level, is just being overloaded. The other issue that you and I see, we've talked about this numerous times, is the amount of youth volunteer coaches at young ages that just aren't qualified. They're they're not only allowing bad habits, but they're teaching bad habits. How many players that you and I have gotten at 10 years old that are still towing the ball?
Yeah.
How many players don't know how to properly pass the ball correctly with the inside of their foot? And you've got to start all over from the very beginning and build them foundationally. You can't even work on, through balls.
Right. Yeah.
And proper shooting. You've
Right.
got to just say, I need you to have a proper technique to just pass the ball on the ground for me.
And I will say, shout out Kentucky Youth Soccer. You and I have complained a lot about them with the heading rule. Of course, that's not Kentucky, but just even the United States Youth Soccer, the heading rule, you and I have some issues there, right? But I do think the push to having our coaches at least and we're going to get into coaching licenses, which I have a whole spiel on, but they are at least now starting to push this idea of if you're going to coach soccer at any level, you at least have to have this grassroots licensing, which is a start. It's not the answer, but it's a start.
And I agree 100%. So let's look at the history of American soccer. Back in 1998, the 90s World Cup is kind of where, Tony Meola, Leslie Lawless, Tab Ramos, where soccer in the World Cup was really for the first time on TV.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
And it blew up. So in 1998, United States Soccer Federation hired Carlos Queiroz to kind of look over the American soccer landscape. He's well known in Europe. He interviewed hundreds of coaches and players to see where they're at, and they came up with this Project 2010, where it kind of gave a report for a path forward. It kind of determined what was the purpose of the college players, and really, there was no rule.
Right.
You can't depend on the college programs to develop pro players. It's a different atmosphere there, and it's finally came out and said there's no system in place to develop your youth. You can take all the 20-year-old kids that you want, but if you're not starting at the younger ages, you're really starting 10 years behind where you need to be.
Well, for me, I even look at that I look at that very differently.
Okay.
I look at that as he's saying, okay, we have some talent. And so what do we do with good talent? We send them to the D1 schools, right? But on the soccer side of things, that's where it ends.
That's very true.
That's where it ends. It ends at that D1 level. And I love our D1 schools. I love our D1 talent. But most of that D1 talent is not going to get it done at an international level, right? And that's how I take that. And I know what he said, and I agree with what he said. Like, it starts at the U levels. But for me, I look at that as, you can't tell me that every now and then we don't have a kid coming through a system that everybody's looking at and is like, oh, we have one in our area right now that I think, I think he's 8 years old, but I look at him and I think this kid can play, and he can play at a high level if we can continue to coach him, right? And so I think it is, what is our goal in the United States? Is our goal to become a D1 soccer player at, who won the men's national championship last year? I don't even know. Is it our goal to be a D1 soccer player at the University of South Carolina? Mm-hmm. Or is our goal to play for the U.S. men's national team? I think those are so drastically different. I think that's where our issue is.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Coach. And when these kids finished college, where did they go?
Exactly.
They disappeared.
Yeah.
So, Coach, go ahead.
So I'm sorry.
No,
because now we're on a roll. Because so now let's say I have an All-American career at Duke, at South Carolina, at Kentucky, right? Mm-hmm. I have an All-American career. I'm the best soccer player in the history of South Carolina University. I don't know why South Carolina was on my brain. Maybe it's because Kentucky plays them on Saturday. Maybe that's why it's on my brain. But I have an All-American career. Is anybody scouting me? Is anybody from U.S. soccer saying, "Hey, man, you're kind of good at this level. Can we?" Or have I already been written off because I'm not in a system? I'm not in their system. I don't know.
I think you got the perfect route because if you weren't part of the Olympic development program back in the 90s,
Yeah.
you weren't looked at. You weren't in front of the right coaches for the United States national team to make your way up to that. Were they looking at college players? I assume they were, but
You hope they were.
I don't know that that's really a fact. So, Coach, moving on here from that Project 2010 report, they started the U17 residency where they created the IMG Academy based in Florida. You want to have heard of this? It is still in process.
Yeah.
This is a temporary fix, very limited capacity, only a dozen kids at a time. Discussions did follow, which eventually the U17 residency turned into the development program or the development academy. And this was launched in 2007. They created 62 clubs. That expanded to 100 clubs over that time. Some of these turned into pro franchises. Some of them had amateur teams along with them. They played a 10-month season. Technical advisors traveled the region as compliance officers, and they're basically evaluating at a 5-star grade scale, making sure that each club was doing something that the national team was kind of passing down. Hey, focus on this agenda when you're working your clubs. The issue was the reports of criticism of those technical directors of the development academy, kind of molding robots. They weren't allowing, I guess, free play, letting the beautiful game roll through the players. It was, you need to do A, B, and C. In every game, you're going to do A, B, and C. And so they weren't developing problem solvers. They were developing programmed robots that kind of did exactly what they were told.
Which I'm going to make a lot of people mad.
Do it. Throw it out there, Coach.
Which, if you look at U.S. soccer, isn't that where we struggle? Isn't it where we struggle when things get a little difficult, things get a little abnormal? We don't know how to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the robots, right? We play, and this is why, one of the reasons why I love Matt Jackson in our club. Oh, sorry, Matt, gave your full name. That's why, one of the reasons why I love the new DOC at our club, because he is giving us some autonomy to, you know, your team, play what you want to play, you know, do it, you know, whatever it is. And so I do think this is what, and it's not a knock on U.S. soccer, really, because I do think they were trying to build a program, right? How can we develop kids at a younger age to be great when we get them to here? Well, let's make sure they're all doing the same thing from 23 to 2 years old.
Which, honestly, when we learned about Spain and Germany, they kind of did that. Hey, we're going to pick the certain players, and they're all going to learn the exact same philosophy. So what were they doing that's different from this?
Well, because here's what I think you said. But your initial statement to that, you said they picked certain players that, hey, we need you to do this. I don't think we picked certain players. I think in this agenda we said everybody's going to do this, and it just didn't work, right? If we get to U8, U9, U10, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, and we have some players who are trending the way we want to trend, is it okay to put them in a, what was this called, the development academy? Yeah. I know it's going to shift in a minute, but is it okay to put them in a development academy and say, okay, this is how we want you to play in this academy? Yeah. I think that is fine, but I think blanketing however X amount of clubs in the United States to play this way all the time, then I do think you run into that robotic sense that you were getting to.
Absolutely, Coach. So moving on here, a lot of the issues and the criticism during the Development Academy, again, players are too rigid. They couldn't solve problems, lacked critical thinking. You gotta let them play. Gotta let them figure things out on their own. And apparently that wasn't happening during this. The other big thing was the kids were traveling far distances, and were never getting benefits from their sacrifices. They were talking about, losing their weekends of hanging out with their friends and, having birthday parties
Right.
or getting invited to the school dance, whatever it may be. They're traveling to other states, and we see that right now, where kids are driving 3, 4, 5, 8 hours away for a weekend of games almost every weekend.
Or to play a game.
Play a game. And I feel like we're back in that kind of scenario, Coach. So eventually the development academy shut down in 2020. COVID-19 destroyed the situation here.
And I do think they were doing some decent things in that academy. I don't think that academy was a complete waste. I know I just kind of went on a rant that made it sound like I did. I do think they were doing some solid things. And then COVID, like it did to a lot of programs, a lot of issues in this country, you just kind of shut it down.
One of the great things we have in our country is Major League Soccer. And thankfully, the club has been hanging out for 30 years now?
Yeah.
Still expanding from time to time. We've got Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez.
Yeah. Ronaldo's honestly.
I think Neymar is about to sign. We've had Ibrahimovic. We had David Beckham. So the league is doing very well. Yeah. They decided they needed to set a standard in America. And so the MLS took over the Development Academy and they created the MLS Next or MLS NXT. It was used to allow reserve players on the pro teams and U23 to play matches. So if you're on a pro team and you're under 23, you can play on these reserve teams.
Correct.
And get games. If there's one thing you and I know, you get to learn a player real quick when they play minutes.
Yeah.
And sometimes players need minutes to grow, and sometimes players need minutes to prove themselves.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you said that because, I mean, how many times have you said, have you watched a player, and you've coached many more years than I have, mostly because you're a lot older, but you've coached many more years than I have. So how many times have you looked at a girl, and I say girl because I know Dunham has coached girls for most of his career, and said, she's just a gamer.
Oh my gosh.
I know she's not showing it in training, but she's just a gamer. Like, when the lights are on, when the varsity spot's on, she's going to show up to play.
Yeah.
But also, you could do that vice versa, where you say, I have Christina, who is phenomenal in every training I run. But man, I put her on the field under the lights, and it is just total breakdown.
Yeah.
Right? So it does work both ways. So how do you prevent that? How do you find that? You let them play games. And this is what I love that the MLS did.
Well, and this is something that Europe does. I follow Liverpool, you follow Arsenal. They have their main team, but they also have a reserve team for your U16s through U23s. They're getting games. They're getting match minutes. And now the club can say, oh, wow, he's having decent practices, but when he plays in games, I need to watch this kid grow for the next 2 seasons.
Absolutely.
Coach, along with the MLS taking over, specific teams kind of took things a step further. So, for instance, the Philadelphia Union created their own youth soccer academy. Teens would attend training and school to get an education in one location. So, unlike what we're doing right now, where parents are paying thousands of dollars for the kid to play a season, these teams are going to the Philadelphia Union. They're getting a school education, and they're getting professional training to possibly live out their dream of being a pro soccer player. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But here along this, many of them didn't go pro, but they still went to college. and got successful jobs. So they're still making sure that they have a backup plan ready for these kids if they don't make it to the pro level.
So this is our new ACE thing, right? We're just gonna try our own school.
It's going to be the Ace Football Academy, and we're going to say,
we're an academy.
I'm going to teach you math. He's going to do some English.
And we're hiring teachers, so they don't, and we pay nothing. So,
but the great thing about this is you're in there with other teenagers, and you're still getting the social development. You're getting the educational.
You're going to school.
You're getting life skills. You're still learning about life. You're getting educated. You're trying to get a future plan for you, whether it be an athletic or academic. But they're doing a full spectrum for these kids.
I would, and I know we're gonna end up running long tonight, folks. But I would love to know the success rate of that, because I mean, how cool is that, right? Where do you go to school? I go to school at the Philadelphia Union.
Hello.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
I'm a pretty good soccer player, so I go to school at the Philadelphia Union, and you know, I learn how to do math and write speeches, but I also play soccer in my activity time. I mean, that is, I think that is
cool thing.
so cool. I would love to look back, and I hope it's still going on. I don't know. I'd love to look back and see what the success rate of that was.
I'm curious to know how many other MLS clubs are following that model. Like, it's not just about, hey, your kid's going to come in here, he's going to play some reserve games. How many are giving them a full spectrum of, hey, we're training you for a pro career. We're also getting you ready for a plan B if that doesn't work out.
Well, and I think I'm going to say a lot, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's all. They all offer like summer camps, or
it should be part of every club's curriculum.
Yeah,
You're going to have.
So we are an FCC affiliate, right?
Right.
And so we are, once they get to a certain age, we are allowed to recommend kids to play on this academy team that we're talking about, right? This FCC academy. And then I do think FCC does that U23 and under with the FCC too. So I do think they're doing some good things. But if I'm a really solid soccer player and I can go live and breathe soccer, which is what I want to do, right? People at this level, that's what they want to do. But I also get an education to where, I mean, when you look at worst case scenario where I blow out my knee and I can never play again, or best case scenario where I make it to the big leagues for 1 or 2 years and then I fizzle out, I still have that education to be like, all right, I can go be a banker now. I can go be a teacher now. I can go be whatever it was I might have been. I can still go do that now. So I do love that aspect, and I'd love to do more research on that. I'd love to know how that is still developing, if it's still developing, if anyone else is doing it, kind of all those things you questioned. Because I had not heard that before, so I do really like it.
Let's just move along here. So because of all of that, because of MLS Next, there is now a tier system within the MLS. Basically, think of a pyramid where you have the bottom tier, you got MLS Next, ECNL, and then the GA, which is the Girls Academy. The next tier up is the MLS Next Pro. So this is more your reserve teams for your MLS clubs. And tier 3, the top pyramid, is the actual Major League Soccer club. So it sounds like the league and the clubs are really working to make sure that they're planning for their future.
Is there any relegation or promotion in that?
Coach, I think it's coming. Honestly, I think it's coming. No, at some point in the next 10 years, maybe the next 20, but it's going to take time for this to happen. But I think we will get to relegation because I think the fans are screaming for it. I think we'll get there.
I hope you're right, because it's what again, we're going to get off topic and I'm going to spend 30 seconds on this. But it's what we get to when you look at development, right? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about development.
Yeah.
And if I have developed to, I don't know where they are now in the USL, but if you remember a couple of years ago, Lou City was winning or in the final for multiple years in a row.
Right.
I mean that league had become not competitive for them anymore.
Right.
Which is why I love the what's the Open Cup that we play? That FC Cincinnati almost won one year.
Yeah, the Open Cup.
The Open Cup. Like I love that.
Yeah.
Because you see that
Lamar Hunt Open Cup.
Some of these top-notch USL clubs can compete.
They can compete.
And so why would we not have pro
FC
relegation?
Cincinnati being one of those back when they were USL.
Absolutely. So anyways, we'll write that down on the board.
Yeah, Coach, let's get into the coaching education portion of U.S. soccer. For you and I, this really is, alongside the youth part of it and the grassroots, it's focusing on the coaching education of youth soccer and up into, the colleges and the higher levels. So for USA, in the U.S., for a license from grassroots through A, you're looking at about $9,000 altogether. That's not including the pro license. That itself is about $10,000.
All right, so Coach, let's make sure we have those numbers right. For me to become a pro coach in the United States, it's going to cost me $10,000 just to get that one license.
Just the pro license.
But leading up to that license, it's going to cost me about another $9,000.
That's correct.
All right, got it.
That's correct. Now, your big pricey ones are going to be your B and your A license. Are the other ones a little bit pricey? I think they are. The question is the quality of the education worth the money you're putting in? That I don't know that you and I love that you're paying that much money for it. The question I have is, and you're in the middle of a C license right now, is the quality of the education worth the money? Is it worth the time to go through that kind of course?
Yeah, I mean, I think this will be a fun blog, a fun scenario where we just follow me through my C license course, right? You just give updates and it's fun. I will tell you the first update is you're about $200 cheaper than what it cost me on your little spreadsheet there.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and not that matters because I'm going to get my C license. It's going to make me a better coach. And I will say already, and I've talked to you off camera. Already, I've had one full course, or I've had two full courses. I've had a one-on-one with my instructor, and it's already been eye-opening. And I've already shared some things with you that I'm like, this is what I'm going to do now. So I do think there is some good coaching education going on. I guess my question is, why does it cost me so much? Right?
Compared to what Spain does?
Yeah, right?
It's a vast difference.
Why does it... I mean, if you can say, all right, it costs you, your number here is $1,500. It costs you $1,500, and here's why, and you can give me an item, then okay, fine, great.
Yeah.
But I don't think that exists, and I just think that, maybe it's because we're paying you and I as coaches too much, and I am fully willing to admit that.
Sure.
And maybe it's because we're paying people on the state side of things too much. I don't know what it is, but the money aspect seems to be so astronomically different here in the States compared to anywhere else in the world. And at least on the men's side of things, we keep getting our butts beat.
So, Coach, we're running out of time here. I'm going to throw a question at you. And we didn't prepare for this, so
oh boy.
I want to see where your thoughts are. When it comes to developing the highest level players, we're just going to say world-class players. When it comes to the U.S. developing world-class players, where is the biggest area that U.S. soccer falls short?
I think it's in those middle school to high school years, right? Because you start to see that talent develop. And again, It's kind of like intelligence in middle school and high school, right? Everybody's smart in second grade, third grade, fourth grade, right? But you start to see that separation as you get to middle school and high school. Yeah. And so I think, so if you want me to pinpoint it, I'd say that 8th grade to sophomore year. When we have these kids, whether they're playing for us the high school or they're playing for us in club, that we're like, okay, this kid is maybe a little different. I'm thinking of a kid for on our 2010 team right now that I think U.S. soccer should be targeting. Is she ever going to play for the women's team? I don't know, but I think we should open up that opportunity to her. And so I think that 8th grade to sophomore year, that's where we are losing the top talent, or not losing because they go on to play for colleges and D1 schools and things like that, but we're not snatching them up into some sort of national system.
Great answer, Coach. And I agree with you. It's pinpointing the right talent and making sure they're getting nurtured. Folks, this has been the ACE Football Academy. I'm Coach Dunham. This is Coach Hamilton. And this is our final episode of the State of U.S. Soccer until we come up for more. If you have any ideas, shoot them out to us. Coach Dunham, Coach Hamilton, ACE Football Academy. Go kick some ace.